As the panel gets set up, and thank goodness they're going to take a little bit of time, because of course if you look in your programs, folks, we are now doing the importance of modern web design. We have a tremendous panel of folks with us here. And I'm going to probably butcher a name or two, so my apologies. But we have Tyler Skalazki. Am I doing that correctly? For some reason, I just got stuck there. Okay, there we go. Very good. And so Tyler is a senior designer at Shout Media, of course, and we've heard from these good folks today. And again, thank you for your sponsorship. Shout Media, of course, here is in Thunder Bay. It has expertise, Tyler's expertise in creative direction, branding, web, and UI design. With over a decade of experience in the industry and a great passion for life in the North, Tyler brings a broad, integrated approach to solving client problems. So Tyler, if you can start making your way up here. Kevin Kuchka is also joining us. Yes, we'll do a big hand here. Kevin Kuchka is also joining us. Kevin is a thought leader, entrepreneur, tirelessly in pursuit of making a difference. For him, like Steve Jobs, it's not enough to come up with breakthrough ideas. He transforms ideas into irresistible products. And last but not least, and my apologies, folks, the lighting is so bright there, and it's almost pitch black here. So I'm sorry if I'm stumbling through some of these things, but it's a little tricky to kind of read up here. So, and of course, Daniel Hansen. Daniel is a designer developer, and along with his partner, Krista, one half of the boutique design studio 1117. Over the years, 1117 has fostered long-term relationships with and continues to solve problems for some of the region's culture and industry leaders, including T-Baytel, the City of Thunder Bay, the Thunder Bay Art Gallery, Magnus Theatre, Bill Martin's Nurseryland, Venshore Mechanical, Northern Window and Door, and many more. His past as a lecturer in philosophy at Lakehead University allows Daniel to bring his research and analytical expertise to bear on client problems, providing keen insight and meaningful solutions. So please, come on up here. Or shouldn't there be more of you? I feel like there should be. Okay.
It's Kevin Anderson, not Kevin.
Oh, it's Kevin Anderson. What have I done here? Sorry, I'm flipping and flopping back and forth. Well, you know what? Why doesn't the other guy give it a try anyway? Kevin Anderson. Okay, here we go. No, that's good catch. Sorry, I was going back and forth from page to page, and like I said, it feels like it's pitch black up here. Okay, let's try this. Kevin is 27 years old. He's a Libra. No, Kevin Anderson has 8 years of professional experience in the field of marketing and advertising. It's funny, you'll only put your age in a bio like that when you're in your 20s. Yeah, I will not do that anymore now that I'm getting longer in the tooth. So it's good. I'd be proud too. I wish I was 27. Okay, Kevin Anderson, 8 years of professional experience in the field of marketing and advertising. After completing his advanced diploma in multimedia production, he went on to work as a designer and developer for the Starman Design Group based in Los Angeles, and continues to work with them on a freelance basis. He returned to his home of Thunder Bay to open 960 Media Group, where as creative director, he works closely with his trusted team to deliver branding, marketing, advertising, and business consultation to not only businesses in the Lakehead area, but also in the US and Canada-wide. So Kevin, why don't you come on up here? Very good. Sorry about that. Got a little mixed up there before. Good man. All right. There you go. That's right. We'll just blend you together and make you a Kevin Dan. Okay. And with that, gentlemen, who is going to begin? Left to right.
We have mics?
You do. You're sitting on your mic.
Oh, I'm sitting on my mic.
Questions
sorry.
here for everyone too.
Okay, very good. Sorry, you're moderating.
People-
That's right. Okay.
Hi everyone, my name's Jacqueline Holm. I'm going to be moderating the session today. I work with the Northwestern Ontario Innovation Centre. I saw these guys starting to sweat here when they didn't have any prompting, so good thing I'm here. I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves and give a little background about their organizations before we begin. Tyler, do you want to start?
Sure. So, yeah, I work at Show Media in town, and we basically do branding, marketing strategy, a lot of web development, and some custom apps, programming, stuff like that. So, we've been around for about 6 years, and yeah, just, I don't know, really kind of bring an integrated approach to just kind of having a small, tight-knit team, and every day is really different. So, it's really neat to be able to have all these different problems from copywriting to people's issues with how to improve their business through technology, and just pull it all kind of together in the end. So yeah.
Awesome. Daniel?
Yeah, can you hear me? Does everybody hear me okay? Yeah, I mean, the introduction covered a lot of it. I'm one half of a small design studio called 1117 here in town. We've been in business for, I think this is our 8th year. And we take a lot of pleasure working mostly with local companies. We do have clients in Toronto and Minneapolis, but really our pleasure is working with local companies and just taking a craftsmanship approach to our work and putting a lot of thought and detail into what we do. And yeah, we're really happy that we can work with local companies and we've established very long-term relationships with them.
Awesome. And Kevin?
Hi. Yeah, the introduction pretty much covered a lot of it. I'm the owner and creative director at 960 Group. We started about 3 years ago, officially. And we design business. So we help new clients and existing clients or customers through brand development, online reputation, social media, web development, search engine optimization, and marketing and advertising strategy. So we've been doing that for the last 3 years, and moving and shifting, things have changed. We work a lot in Chicago, a lot in Los Angeles, where I started my origin story. So it's been a ride, and we're continuing to ride with it. So I hope I can deliver some answers to a couple of these questions you're going to have for me.
Excellent, thank you. So we do have some questions ready to go, but after that we'll have some time for audience Q&A. So the first question I have here is for Kevin. So keeping with the theme today of modern web design, what are the most important components when designing a new website?
Well, first and foremost, research is the most important part. Understanding who your target audience is and what you're designing for is the most important thing. That being said, design is the, that being said, designing for a client who you haven't researched for, ton of problems can come up. So research is number one. Number two, I would say a strong site map. Your building is only as strong as your blueprints. So make sure you have all your ducks in a row. And then I would say mobile friendly. Again, everybody here would probably agree with me. It's the digital age. We all are on our cell phone. So make sure you are mobile friendly. Mobile development is a huge, huge thing. So you have to design in not only desktop, but mobile. Other than that, I would say content. Content. Good content will keep people on your website, will keep people browsing, will make people call you, whether that be copywritten material, professional photography, well-production video. That is going to be the reason people are going to visit you. And if it's top-notch, it's the reason they're going to choose you. So that's what we believe in anyway. So we always try to strive for the best product and the best content when we do our websites for our design. And it's a lot easier, too. It's hard to design with bad material, as if some of you are designers. So good material, good content is always a great thing.
Excellent, thank you. So our next question here is for Daniel, and it's about e-commerce. E-commerce is becoming increasingly popular for boosting business sales. So Daniel, what does a client need to know or do prior to designing an e-commerce website? And what are some of the common mistakes you're seeing people make?
Okay, so how long do we have?
I'll cut you off if you go too long.
Okay. Well, I'll try to, I think probably the most important thing when designing for e-commerce and setting up an e-commerce scenario is, again, like Kevin said earlier, really understanding who your target audience is and what they want, what they're looking for. Doing your research. There's a lot of data. E-commerce has been around, well, I mean, Amazon celebrated their 20th anniversary last year, which is crazy. There are people in university that have known a world that hasn't had Amazon, and that scares me a little bit. So I mean, we've been doing this for a long time. We know what works, we know what doesn't work. We understand users, even without having to do any research, but do the research. Understand who you're talking to, who you're selling to, and just try to meet them where they are and make things as easy as possible for them. If you're not doing that, you'll end up with problems. It starts with understanding your user, having empathy for who they are. If you're not being empathetic and you're putting your own business rules or needs over top of what they need or want, you're going to end up with problems. And those typical problems tend to be not providing enough information about the product that you're selling, not making it easy for them to find what they're looking for. Sort of a basic mindset that I always keep in mind with designing any website, but particularly e-commerce, is that shoppers or anyone who's surfing the internet, they want to find what they're looking for. They're coming to your site, they come to your site. If you're doing everything that Suzanne was telling you to do earlier, and you're doing everything that Scott was telling you to do just a few minutes ago, and they end up on your site, they are there with a very optimistic attitude. They want to find what they're looking for. So the onus is on you to make that experience as easy as possible, as friendly, even and as enjoyable as possible. Try to raise the bar a little bit. If you're not doing that, you end up, really what you're doing is you're putting your own interests, your own wants as a business on top of theirs, prioritizing your own wants and needs over top of their wants and needs. And then you end up just overwhelming them with information. Your website ends up cluttered. You're hustling them to try and upsell, which people will get really irritated by and they'll leave. Your design will be cluttered. You won't be providing enough information for them because you're not really thinking about what they want, what they need to know. You're not investing in good, if you're selling like a physical product, you're not investing in good product photography and understanding even product photography is a really interesting one because it really depends on what you're selling, how you photograph that stuff and what you're presenting to them. People who are buying shoes need to see different aspects of the shoe top. They want to see the sole of the shoe. They want to be able to zoom in and see details. Same thing with if you're selling pants, you want to see what it looks like on a model or in some kind of context. If you're selling furniture, people like to see it in context, but that's not necessarily true for other things. So take the time, invest in good, high-quality photography, and that is going to go a very long distance in making people feel comfortable that they're going to end up with what they want. Another sort of big boogeyman of e-commerce is the checkout process. It's a gnarly process to set up. There's many ways you can do it, but really your primary concern is making that process as smooth and as free of distraction and potential concern for the shopper. Most shopping carts are abandoned during the checkout process because people freak out because they are surprised by prices that weren't there during, like the shipping price is new or there's additional fees or taxes or handling fees that they weren't expecting. They'll bug out and they won't come back. You want to make sure that the checkout process is very informed, that it's easy, that there are no surprises, and that people feel comfortable giving you their information, their name, their credit card information, all of that sensitive stuff that people can get really touchy about. And just, holding their hand. They're like little kittens, and they're scared, and you need to encourage them and help them along the way without, scaring them or being a jerk. So, just really be empathetic. Really, it starts with that, and then everything just kind of falls into place.
Right? So moving along, we're going to get back to Daniel shortly. After we've converted the kittens into sales, Tyler, a lot of people currently are trying to do DIY websites. Setting up a website can be an expensive process, and there are tools coming out to make that more and more affordable. So what is your opinion of sites like Wix and Weebly? How do you feel they work for small business, either enhancing or detracting?
I'm pretty biased on this one because we make them and sell them, but I understand the impulse, right? I mean, like my mom loves to recover furniture, but she's not super good at it. So the issue is, you know, so, and I get it's a case of someone who isn't a professional, but gets a passion from creating something, right? So, I mean, you know, she'd see this chair and see a problem. She'd see, okay, well, you know, this would probably look better if it was maroon and it had little, like, fish on it. And so, and she'll learn, and she actually could take this off and redo it, but it wouldn't look great. And I mean, I have enough examples in my own house, so I'm really polite. So, yeah, so with websites, it's the same, where Wix, Weebly, Squarespace is another big one, and if you listen to podcasts at all, they're everywhere. The ad spend of these guys is massive, and you really do. You know, now tools are better than ever. So back in the day, you had like GeoCities, right? And I don't know if you know, I might look young, but I'm old here. So I back in the GeoCities day, I think I probably had a page dedicated to my cat or something like that, you know, and. Back then, it was really hard to make something, and that's why, you know, back in the day, the web looked terrible. Everything was just dumped together like a big fax. So now, to their credit, the tools have evolved a lot. So they're drag and drop, they're really easy. They've got presets of, you know, cheesy stock photography of people grinning and, you know, high-fiving each other. So it's a really easy way to slap together something that at least looks professional and does build your brand a little bit. So there's a lot of really terrible websites out there. And I get that for small businesses, you're strapped. And I mean, I think your average marketing budget should be 10% of your net. And so of that, people don't spend a lot on web. And they think, oh, you know, but, you know, in a modern age, like it's basically your signage. You know, back in the day, you look down the strip in Thunder Bay, it was all neon lights. It was all, no signs cost $10,000, $15,000. And now, people don't spend that, but you should really, you know, you do have that money if you look, and you should spend it on something maybe a little more custom. So, you know, Wix, Weebly, the pros are, it's drag and drop, they're easy, they're pretty cheap. So, I mean, they'll range from about 16 to maybe 26 US a month. The issue is, you know, if you're like most people, the average lifespan of websites may be 5 years. So, you know, by the end of the 5, you're still spending about 1,500 US. You're on your way to actually getting something totally custom where you have someone who knows your business, knows what you need, you know, and it's kind of like a tailor, right? So, I mean, I could go to, you know, Winners and know, hey, I get, these pants are probably from Winners, but you could go there, but it might not be the greatest fit, right? So it might, you know, it's gonna be a little baggy here, and so people are gonna notice. They're not, you know, you're not gonna look ridiculous, but you're gonna look a little, you know, like if you have a custom tailored suit, on the other hand, people notice that, you know, they're like, wow, you know, it's, especially, you know, I probably could hit the gym a little more here, but, you know, it's just gonna hide the bad stuff and it's gonna show off the good stuff, you know? So having someone who really knows your business and really can tailor that experience, whether, and like Dan was saying with e-commerce, I mean, a lot of these sites, they don't offer any way to add on any custom features. If you want online payment integration, if you want e-commerce, if you know, your bill payment, if you're running a training module, all these things, it's just kind of okay. But if you wanna, you know, have photos of your cats that look cute and professional. No, I'm being a bit hard on them, but they look good now, and they are easier than ever. But I can also spot one from a mile away. So I mean, it is the difference in a tailored suit, something you're gonna spend a bit for, you're gonna have it for longer, and if you you know, go with a good company, it's really gonna stand the test of time. And yeah, so I mean, that's kind of the main points there. And again, they are better than ever. SEO kind of suffers a bit there too, where you can really custom tailor things when you have a company versus some, you know, big corporation that you don't have a face, you can't walk in. And that's for us, you know. We're gonna recommend stuff that is gonna really just be perfect for what you need, and it's gonna fit your business, you know. And with Wix, like, yeah, it's going to get the job done for a little bit, but people are going to notice, and I don't think long-term there's big value. So I probably talked for too long. But.
Oh, that's good. Thank you very much. Just out of curiosity, show of hands out there, who has built their own website before using one of these tools? So a couple people are using them.
No, I'm kidding. GeoCities.
Awesome. So back to Kevin. When you look at web development as a whole, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see being made, specifically in terms of the design element and user interface?
Wix and Weebly. No, well, it could be. It depends if you do it yourself. A lot of the time, people don't understand that when you're building a website, you're actually building it for a brand. So you actually have to look back at the values of that brand, the guidelines of that brand, look at the marketing material, look in actually like the internal side of the business, and really figure out what their image is, what they're saying, and then look at that. People don't see that when they design a website. They just think, here's a 960 by 960 box, and let's throw some text in it, and it's gonna work. It doesn't work like that. So that's usually where we see bad web design all the time. It looks like it's from 1998. Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's good. Doesn't mean people are reading it. People are gonna look at a wall of text, they're gonna leave. Like, I'm lazy. I wanna get my point across in the first 3 seconds. So that's really where bad web design comes in, is the amount of content they put on there and how useful it actually is. And is it getting the point across? So I would avoid text walls, so paragraph upon paragraph on your homepage. You know what? Make sure that your brand is the first thing that people see. And when they see your brand, they know who you are and what you're selling or what you're offering. So that is the first and foremost. So they don't go there, they don't have to scroll down, they don't have to click 3 interlinks to find out who you are. That is the most important thing when it comes to actual good web design that I think, because having a good stay time of 2 to 3 minutes is very important. I would say that's a successful attention span for the internet. Like, we click off every 2 seconds on anything these days. Facebook is nuts. There's new information, there's cat photos, cat websites that Tyler's building. There's everything. So you wanna make sure the information is good, precise, and also designed well. So those are I would say, horrible design flaws. There's lots of bad content, horrible misplaced text, and the beauty of it, it's art. I would say it's like any sales material. Think of it like a brochure, an ad. You want to get that point across right away, so why wouldn't your website be the same?
Excellent, thank you. So Kevin touched a little bit about the content side of things, but I'd like to delve a little bit deeper into that. So Daniel, we often see poorly written and dated content up on websites. How important is that well-written and organized content, and do you have any tips and tricks for the audience out there?
In terms of importance, it's essential, absolutely essential. There is a fundamental principle in web design that many web designers operate on, and that's content first. In fact, a lot of web designers will, before they even start sketching anything out, they will work with the client to isolate what the content priorities are and actually write a lot of that content before they even go into wireframing or comping or any development time. And the reason for that is because the whole purpose of the web is to provide content, is a means or a venue for people to provide content and for other people to access that content. It's all about content. Kevin's absolutely right. You need to put a lot of attention into how it's written, making sure it's appropriate for your audience, making sure it's reflecting your brand identity appropriately, that it's serving the real needs of your users and also the communication goals of your company. There's a lot going on there. In terms of the freshness of your content, Suzanne touched on that this morning eloquently. She demonstrated the importance from an SEO perspective. Particularly in a competitive environment, you need to make sure that you're doing what you can to just keep on top of that game, keep your content fresh as much as you can. Caveat, we haven't updated our website in over a year. And actually it's really funny, we're seeing the result of that. I mean, we're not very active about that because we tend to stay out of the spotlight, but it does have an effect. It has a very direct effect, particularly in a competitive environment or an environment where your competitors are doing what they should be to update their content. So there's just this cycle. Further to that, you also want to make sure that your content is accurate, and if it needs to be updated so that it is accurate, so that if people are trying to contact you or find you, or if you don't want to have employee listings on there that are out of date, and it just can get a little weird that way. So even just from a basic practical point of view, you need to make sure that your content is fresh. In terms of tips and tricks, I think one challenge I'm sure that many business owners have, many organizations have, when it comes to website content, is that there isn't a dedicated person who's in charge of maintaining the website content. That's really hard for smaller organizations to do. I mean, there's just too many things to do, too many hats to wear. Content development or websites haven't, it's changing now, but it hasn't really in the past been a priority to work on them. People will publish a website and it'll stay there, stay that way for years. That's changing more, and there are other businesses that are popping up that will actually will work with smaller organizations to manage their web content, and that's an important new business that's arising. So I would seek those people out. Or if you are a small organization, just try to work content development and content writing into your process, into your daily process. Assign it to somebody, or if you're having like weekly stand-ups, just make sure that website content is on the agenda. And that will go a long way in making sure that things stay fresh and that you're, like Suzanne was saying, checking your analytics and making sure that your site is being relevant to your market.
Awesome, thank you. We definitely see that a lot at the Innovation Center. Finding time to update your content is extremely difficult, but also very important. So my next question here is for Kevin. Continuing on the content train a little bit, how important is the high-resolution professional photography when creating the website? I know imagery is huge, and I was hoping you could speak to that a little bit.
For sure. At 960, we love photography. It was like the number one thing when I got into the business. When I came from Los Angeles, it was like, wow, we get to work with great content from photographers from New York and Los Angeles. I'm like, oh man, it's so much easier to make appealing websites with beautiful photography. So I came home, I'm like, I gotta find a photographer. So yeah, it is very, very important. High resolution photography is one thing, but well done photography, working with a very good photographer who understands lighting, understands the brand, and understands that first of all, how to shoot for the web. There's some photographers that, they're portrait photographers, I get it, but you gotta learn to shoot for the web. You access bleeding room, things like that. So high resolution photos are a must to create not only content, but advertisements, headshots. It's brand value, what it brings to the website. A website is it's usually the last place a person's going to look for more information for you, and the photos photo speaks 1,000 words. So like that's really what it is. So we love using photography in our business, and we will continue to use photography in our business. Even for clients who don't want to use photography, we try to find a different way to use photography because it's so important. And with things like Instagram and Facebook and iPhones and the technology of cameras getting way better, images speak everything. And people are lazy by nature. They don't want to read. They want to see a picture. They want to see a meme. They want to watch a video. I would say video is even more important, but it can get costly and budget and all that kind of stuff. But rich content, good photography, high resolution images go such a long way, increase brand value, and for designers' sake, it helps a lot. So try designing something with an iPhone photo from 1998. Good luck putting it on a website and someone saying, why doesn't this look good? So invest into a photographer. It's worth it. It is so worth it. Yeah.
Just a question to all three of the panelists. Any tips for the small businesses or starting out entrepreneurs who might not have that big budget for a professional photographer?
Buy a nice camera and go on YouTube. Seriously, kind of though. I mean, especially we have some clients who will run restaurants and that, and it's not practical, right, to hire someone, even though there's incredible benefit, like Kevin said. And but if at least if you buy your own, and sometimes we'll just advise people on it and just say, what, get this lens, get this camera, and kind of set it to auto, and at least they're going to not be blurry cell phone photos, and especially of food. It's one of the biggest things you can do to help, improve your image and brand, totally.
Yeah, there are things that you could do on a budget. Again, YouTube is a very good one. Photography is an art. A camera is a tool, just like anything else. Understanding how to use it and having the eye for it. So YouTube videos and, seeking out someone who might actually have some photography experience to kind of teach you, rule of thirds and different kind of lighting, simple lighting techniques. So it's consistent throughout your website as well. That's another big thing I like to talk about is consistency in a brand and consistency in a website. And consistent photos are, there's some simple lighting setups that you could do to have a consistent look on your website, especially with a low budget. YouTube is amazing.
Excellent, thanks. So my next question here is for Tyler. How has technology changed how websites are developed and designed over the past few years?
So this will be the nerdy one, I guess. So you know, if anyone wants to leave and get coffee, or no. So things have changed so much over the past. I mean, even 5 years, but I mean 10 years, it's night and day. Every year, it's kind of night and day. And you know, back in the day, design trends were really like, you know, if you were a law firm, well then your whole website would just be marble, and there'd be these big beveled buttons that would just like bump out at you, like kind of like 3D. And it was just, they loved texture, and it was like, if you could really design a website by, if you're a restaurant, you just write your menu on a piece of paper, take a photo of it, and that's your website, right? So now the great thing is with modern technology and CSS, HTML5, web fonts, which is all gibberish, you know, but it translates to basically you being able to use any type you want, like you're in a design application, but now you're coding. So with web fonts, now I can use beautiful modern type anywhere I want. For SEO, that's going to index properly. Back in the day, you'd either use Flash, which is really awkward, and it's basically dead now.
Let's not get into that.
Or you, yeah.
Stay away
You
from
still have
that.
it back in the day, but yeah. So you could do that, or you'd bake your fonts into images, which again don't index well. And then smartphones came out, and it's like, okay, so you've got this box of a site that's in a table that looks like a fax, and you know, now how does that translate onto a mobile device? Well, you got to. I'm sure we all probably still have carpal tunnel from the pinch to zoom, you know, before this started to be a trend where you wanted to get in, because on a mobile device, traditional websites look terrible. You need a magnifying glass to even start to be able to read them. So now design trends are a lot more, and technology's evolved to the point where we can have these large, beautiful images Kevin was talking about. You can have HTML5 has video tags that basically let you have just live video replacing any HTML object. So you can just say, okay, I want the background to be some guy jogging. I'm a CrossFit business, you know? It's gonna really, first thing you see is this beautiful full screen video. You've got great type on top of it. And now if I shrink my screen, so if I'm on a tablet, if I'm on a mobile phone, everything's gonna shift. And that's part, HTML5 basically is, and CSS, they separate all the design elements from all the content elements. So when you're doing your code, you just go, okay, this is an article, this is your navigation. And for indexing for Google, that works way better. They're able to understand the hierarchy. Also, just for how you're able to reorder elements now, you can say, okay, I'm on a tablet, so instead of having these three little service buttons beside each other, now they're on top of each other, and it just flows great on a mobile device. So basically, you're able to change font sizes, anything you want. You can say, I don't want to show that image if I'm on mobile, show that element, so you can get really creative with ways that everything shifts and grows. So basically, the two sites can look completely different, which the value in that is incredible, right? And I mean, now more than ever with Google de-ranking pages that aren't mobile friendly, this technology is kind of like a must-have, you know? And so that's kind of one of the big things. And I mean, back in the day, again, it was like your website was kind of like, the code was like the difference between, you know, a garbage dump and having an organized file system where, you know, you can just go in and say, okay, this is exactly where everything is. And so just, if you ever update your site too, it makes it a lot easier to, okay, this is where everything's in its right place. Yeah. So those are kind of big ones. Also, content management systems have evolved. So back in the day, you know, you'd have to go in, you'd do your code. If anything had to change, you'd have to go into every reference of that, change it manually in the code. And you know, some people are savvy enough, but it's really difficult. And I mean, that's a big, you have enough stress as a business owner. Do you want to be going in and learning how to okay, program a little bit to update things? So content management systems evolved. WordPress is one of the more popular ones, and we use it a lot. And basically, it evolved as a blogging platform, so it was a way for people just to post, you know, probably photos of kittens, because that's all I'm talking about today. And it really grew into something that's a full website platform. And the big benefit there is just that you're able to completely, you have all these community plugins and stuff that you don't have to totally make everything from the ground up. So there's a lot of support. It's really flexible. And your clients are now able to just update content. So you don't have to learn coding. And like Scott was talking about, you know, you got to know your strengths. So I mean, most people can go in and make simple text changes, and that's within your time frame and your budget. But to go in and actually tweak code and break stuff, then you're on the phone, you're web guy, it's just such a nightmare that's really brought web design and development into the forefront of it. It's accessible, it's easy. You can still have these drag and drop kind of things, but yeah, it really has changed how clients are able to just like update and keep content fresh, like Dan was mentioning, you know, because we do update clients for a lot of, update pages and content for a lot of clients, but often it's got to be instant. It's got to be little updates day to day. The client sometimes is the best person to do that. So really, technology's evolved to the point where you can do this, and you don't have to have a separate site for a mobile phone. You just change content in one place, you change style in one place, and it spiders out throughout the whole site. So yeah, it's really made it a lot easier and a lot more effective for clients to kind of run their site and update them. Yeah.
Thank you. Dan or Kevin, would either of you care to comment on any of the emerging trends and specifically how small, medium-sized businesses can take advantage of them?
I think it's great. Ever since WordPress has kind of evolved into this amazing blogging platform, and it's kind of become the center of the content management systems of the web, we've always looked at it like, why reinvent the wheel? So it's so user-friendly, and it's open source. And for people who aren't familiar with open source, it's free. And it has a community of people who actually upload it or update it and fix it and add new things. So you don't need to do the old school way of building this platform by yourself anymore. And it makes it really easy to stay with the same platform and actually update it according to what's going on in the world in design and web development. You kind of keep with this core system, this core management system, and once you get familiar with it, you don't really have to leave it. And that's what I think that is so beautiful about these management systems and the way they've evolved for the last little while.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We use WordPress almost exclusively for content management systems. Yeah. We've tried a bunch of different ones over the years, and we keep coming back to WordPress because it's well supported. It's easy to use. We've had clients who we've scheduled training sessions for them once the site's live, but they've gone in and started mucking around with stuff on their own, and they haven't had any issues with it at all. You can't break anything. It's foolproof, and it's extremely flexible for developers and designers to work with. Yeah. In terms of technology trends, aside from what we've been talking about already, I think most of the trends that I'm excited about aren't ones that clients are going to see, or that, but they affect our process, and they affect the technology that we're using, and it affects the end result out there. There's a lot happening and evolving on the web development and design community. As an industry, it's really maturing and maturing very quickly. And what that's going to mean is that when you're working with a web design and development company, the end result is going to be that much more powerful, that much more long-lasting, and you're going to get a better result for the same value, I think. That's what we're seeing. We're able to do more in less time and end up with a better result. So it helps things for everybody.
Excellent. So I'm guessing that means that it's becoming more affordable and easier for small business to access.
I think to a degree, yeah. And that's certainly true with WordPress too. What we've been finding is that depending on what the client's needs are, and there are some clients who really can't afford very much, or they're approaching their business from an agile perspective, and they want to just start with something really kind of small and something they can build on. WordPress works really, really well for that. I mean, you can start with a paid theme, modify a few things with it. It's really inexpensive to get that up and running. And there are some really fantastic paid themes out there, really beautiful stuff. And so just if you're a new business and you need to get out there, or you're an existing business and you don't have a web presence and you need something up, that's a really good place to start. And then you can build on that.
Right.
Excellent, thank you. So I think at this point we can turn it over to the audience to see if anyone has any questions for our panelists.
What kind of cat do you have, Tyler?
I actually have 2 huskies. Yeah,
So no
I'm a
cats.
compulsive liar.
So no
Yeah.
cats. That's okay. You love them. No questions?
Folks, questions? Questions? Here we go.
Can you each give an example of like a really good website, probably one that you guys have all designed, just so that we can, just so that we can go back and like
pressure.
see what you guys think is like a good website for someone that might
T-Base
not know?
Yeah, ooh.
Let's see what this is about. It planted them.
You didn't do your work ahead of time? Go on.
I know.
You're going to prime this.
Who's starting this?
No, go ahead.
What, sorry?
You want to start?
Yeah, me start? Oh, yeah,
Okay,
sure.
we'll start. I'll end it.
I don't know. We do a ton of different. We do a lot of like larger corporate, and a lot of actually construction in that lately. So like Winmar is just one that we just launched. That are like a property restoration company, and we kind of did some parallax, kind of some fun stuff. And it's always nice to be able to have like carte blanche and just be creative. And sometimes, like most of the time it works actually. I'm surprised. I'll kind of sell this really crazy concept. And I'm like, you're okay with that? And I'm like, yes, because, again, design by committee is sometimes how things happen. And I get that committees have to exist, but it can really, when you have 10 cooks, it can affect the final result. But no, yeah, a lot of the newer ones that we've done are really, you're using like just modern parallax, some real fun animation stuff in that. So yeah, Winmar is definitely one of the newer ones. The Thunderwolves, we did that site recently. That was a huge one because of the amount of content. And that's, content is king. The biggest thing is when you have endless player reviews and articles and, information for students, you really have to take in like user accessibility and kind of all those things that you deal with in a student population and that too in account. So yeah, broad range, and it's always a pleasure to have a challenge,
For us recently, I think, when I think, this is a really interesting question to answer because for me, I do a lot of the development, and so the sites that I think are really cool and important are the ones that are developed really well, and I got to use some new tools and try some new techniques, but I think probably ones that from a visual standpoint and from a communication standpoint, ones that I think stand out for me recently are the Bill Martin's Nurseryland website. That was a fun one to work on because we were working with, again, great photography, and it just makes the design job so much better. And plus we were making, I think, very good use of web type and just trying to push that as much as possible into and trying to explore the web canvas a little bit more instead of trying to stay in boxes. I think we were trying to make it a little bit more fluid. Another site that I designed last summer is the Thunder Bay Community Boating Center Initiative website. It's not well known. It's just something that's sort of in the planning stages, something that is being pitched to the Marina Development Committee or whatever they're called, to try and get a boating center, a dedicated boating center in place at the marina, because it's baffling that there isn't one. And that's a really interesting site. It's a responsive site, but it only goes so far. It's so small as like, let's say, tablet size. It wouldn't, the kind of content and the way that it's being presented would not work well on a mobile device. And it's not really meant to be experienced on a mobile device. And I think that's probably an important point to make, is that not all websites need to work in all circumstances. I mean, it really depends on what the communication goals are. I think for all businesses, it's nonsense not to have a responsive website. We haven't designed a website in the last 3 years that hasn't been responsive. It's just sort of a given. We start mobile first and then move up from there. So it just happens. But this boating center website it's a little bit different. It's more like a brochure, you might say. It's a big, long, single-page scrolling thing that moves sequentially through this really, I don't know, a very engaging kind of thing. And I did it in 2 days, which was, again, that's one of those things that makes me excited about it. I got to do some new stuff, and I really charged it through, and it came out well. So, yeah, I don't know.
Did you sleep for 2 days? What were you up? 48 hours.
You know, it's, you ever get into a flow?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
It's awesome. And
the
you
high
just,
is amazing.
And I
you
think
can work
you-
and you can work and you can
You
work.
finish university, you think like, oh man, I'm great. Like, I'll never have to pull those all-nighters again, you know? And then you're like, oh, just wait, I'm kind of in that job, absolutely, you know? And you're like, it's like 4 a.m. and
I'm
you
still
know,
working.
But
But it's
and
good,
and
right?
that's where when you're passionate about what you do, and again, you do get to do just amazing creative things, and you're just constantly solving problems, right? And that's maybe like that's what branding is you're solving people's problems with it, you know? It's design, and especially things as simple as logos, you know? It could be, like, I always look at the Pepsi rebrand, and I think, like, I think it looks really silly. But, you know, it's just a tiny little curved line, but that probably took them, like, 20,000 hours of case studies and, you know, just to get to that final process of having a kind of more curvy line, you know? And just the amount of variation present in design. And with the web now, again, it's fluid. So you're not just working with a canvas, you're working with something that's always changing, you know, like SEO, like all these, everything's now, it's completely fluid, you know? And it makes it really, I know for responsive sites, yeah, all ours have been responsive for a long time. And you got to really wrap your head around that, you know? We're like, okay, this looks different if someone's on an iPhone and of course people have like 300 different devices with different screen sizes, and it's kind of a nightmare. So you got to really like, and you know, and again, like I'm old, so I grew up with like fax text websites, and now you're like wrapping your head around like this living, breathing, you know? There's one we did where there were clouds in the header depending on the weather, so it takes a live weather feed, and the weather changes on the graphics of the site depending on, you know, the outside weather. So stuff like that, you just couldn't do it before, and just to get creative about it and break out of that box is so important. And I mean, like, you don't always have time to do it, which is why, honestly, a lot of the time you're just putting your own time in to bring it up to your standards, you know, and really make it something cool, you know?
So my turn still?
How are we doing for time?
Yeah, it's time.
We're doing okay. We can take another question if there's one out there. Alrighty.
So when you're starting out creating a new website, do you think you should spend your time creating decent content or doing the design of the website?
I would say a combination of both. Content is king, it always will be. It's what keeps your company moving and people up to date. Design is also really important, and you'll hear me say it 1,000 times. It'll always bring it back to your brand and your values. When you do a brand development, you have a design, a certain look, a certain image for your company that creates a certain emotion and to a certain audience. So when you're designing that website, you always go back to that. So that's really, really important. You want to make sure your website looks like everything else in your company and actually is relatable. So I would say it's a combination of both, but your content's the same way. You have to go back to your brand. You have to see what your values were, who your target audience is, and make sure your colors are in the right place and your font's in the right place, and just kind of make sure it's very professional. I always say think like a franchise, be consistent, and you'll never go wrong. Unless your content's bad. Unless your product's bad, then we can't help you.
And it's kind of like baking, right? Where you can have, and that's where, like Kevin says, like, if you have the content and you have the photos and you have all those assets right off the bat, like, you know, and if I'm baking a cake, I could be the greatest chef in the world, but if I have like flour and salt, well, it's still going to look like a cake, but it's probably not going to taste great, right? So like, the more assets you have right off the bat, the easier the whole process is going to be, because then you're not like, you're designing a bit, but then you get new content, which changes the scope of how it might look, or now there's more info and you've got to present it kind of more strategically, or there's less content and you're using more images. So as opposed to having to reinvent and rejigger kind of the process halfway through, when you have all the content straightened out right off the bat, you have a vision kind of, and you're able to give that to a designer and really have them work for that specific vision versus change it halfway through, which costs more, ends up being a little awkward, and it just takes more time, you know? So many times content stalls the development of a site, you know, where you say, you know what, we'll get it later, and then it's like a year later, and you're like,
Why isn't my site
and
up?
you're like, and the business is gone, maybe, you know, so it's a big deal.
No, and to a lot of people who are new business owners or are, you know, going to be independent bloggers and stuff like that, and say they can't develop content because their website's not ready, we encourage people to open up a Word document and blog your heart out and come up with social media posts and archive these things, because once you have that information written down, it is an easy transfer to your website and to syndicate it out to the web once it's done. Content usually comes with you in the middle of your sleep. If you're a blogger, you thought of something, you wake up, you write it down in your notebook. So content could be anything. It could be the video blog, it could be that image, it could be that actual book you just wrote. It could be anything. So never, just because your website's not ready or you don't think you're ready, don't stop creating content. Just put it away, make sure you're gonna use it eventually, and make sure it's well organized. Because that one day you could pull it out, you could revamp it, or it could be syndicated with post schedules, things like that on social media, call to actions, all that kind of great stuff. So never, ever, don't write or don't produce content if you don't think you're ready. Just write away, ideas come, that's where creativity comes into play, and that's gonna make or break you, really.
My answer is that, yeah, work on the content first. Work with someone who is, work with your web developer or the web development company, or work with a copywriter who has familiarity with writing for web, who can understand content strategy and information architecture. Find that person, sit down with that person, and work with that person. Work and work and work with that person until at least you have a fairly concrete sense of what the site's gonna do, how your content's gonna be organized, what the priorities are in terms of content. For us, what we've found is that once you understand what those priorities are, it will dictate what the design is. Not from a graphic point of view. I mean, there's obviously a pre-existing identity things that you're going to be working with, and you're not pulling this out of thin air. However, what you're going to be doing is applying those identity materials or those identity elements to the website in a functional way. And that function is meant to serve the content for the benefit of the user. So work on the content first. Understand what those priorities are. You don't have to write every single word, although I have to say sometimes that does help. Because again, even to the word, sometimes that will determine what the design will do. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, do it get the broad strokes, even a little bit better than that, and then start working with your designers to start wireframing, seeing how the layout's gonna serve the content, start building that thing. And it's an iterative process to work with the design, get it into the browser early, start working with it in situ, and eventually it'll take some shape. But the content, I'll hammer down on that. And Tyler was right. You need to really work on the content, and you need to work with the client, and the client needs to work with the developer, the designer, to just keep working on the content. It's a constant struggle sometimes, but if you make it the top priority in the web design process, then it's a little more manageable.
Excellent. Thank you very much to all of our panelists today. I think that they'll be around after if there are any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Engage and the Anishinaabe ASCII Development Fund would like to thank the sponsors of Engage 2016. TB Newswatch, TD Bank, T-Baytel, MNP, Shout Media.